9. The Hermit. An old man moves slowly along a dim and stony road. He is dressed in garments resembling those of a monk. The way before him is poorly lighted by a lantern which he carries in his right hand, shielded by his sleeve from the force of the wind. His left hand grasps a heavy staff, around which, in some packs, is entwined a serpent. Although his cloak is hooded, the hood is thrown back and his head is bare. This card is number 9 in the tarot sequence. 9 is important symbolically, in that it is the last of the single numbers. After it, we return to number 1, or unity. The Hermit, therefore, signifies the final stage of the first half of the tarot quest. In some ways, this card is analogous to the Fool. Here the seeker is again setting off on the first stage of a journey, alone and with little to guide or sustain him. But he is represented as a solitary old man, a hermit, trudging along a dark and lonely road, instead of a youth skipping gaily through the morning sunlight. The quest of the first half of life, the outward turning solar phase, has reached its conclusion, and the scales of justice have tipped in favour of the second quest, into the inward turning lunar world of the unconscious. The hermit has taken heed of the voice of justice, his own conscience, and is seeking for answers to the questions that plague him. He knows that a duty has been laid upon him, and that he will be unable to rest until he has fulfilled his obligations. But the way ahead is dark, and he has only the light of his own intuition to help him find the right path. All the wealth and wisdom of the outer world cannot assist him now, and so he goes forth into the night, dressed in a simple robe and carrying only a staff to lean on. The serpent curled around his staff symbolizes his own innate source of unconscious wisdom, which will help him surmount the obstacles ahead. Jung has said, isolation by a secret results as a rule in an animation of the psychic atmosphere as a substitute for the loss of contact with other people. It causes an activation of the unconscious, and this produces something similar to the illusions and hallucinations that beset lonely wanderers in the desert, seafarers and saints. As a substitute for the normal animation of the environment, an illusory reality rises up in which weird ghostly shadows flit about in place of people. To essay such an adventure takes considerable courage, for by abandoning conventional values in favour of the dictates of his inner self, he is setting himself apart from the comforts and authority of society in order to follow a lonely road that leads he knows not where. The Hermit illustrates a crisis of will, which must be met and overcome by anyone who would advance beyond the common pale. Conversely, the awareness of conscience is the first glimpse of the inward light, the first intimation of the brilliance of the mystic centre which lies at the end of his quest. This feeble flickering of the inward light helps guide the hermit on his way. It is his lantern, by the light of which he can discern a little of the path before him and spy out the obstacles and crevices that lie at his feet. The stage of life represented by the hermit has been well described by the philosopher Schopenhauer. Life may be compared to a piece of embroidery, of which, during the first half of his time, a man gets a sight of the right side, and during the second half of the wrong. The wrong side is not so pretty as the right, but it is more instructive. It shows the way in which the threads have been worked together. The figure of the hermit is also a powerful psychic image, who sometimes appears in dreams or visions. He personifies the wise old man, the teacher who points out the thread of meaning that is woven into the apparent chaos of life. He illuminates the primeval darkness with the light of higher consciousness and drives away the shadows of the night. The negative aspect of the hermit shows he whose mind has locked fast in an attitude of stubborn dogmatism, unable to adopt new concepts or shed old ones. He is cloaked in ignorance, and the light of his higher self is shielded from the winds of change which threaten his complacency. The staff upon which he leans is then the body of fixed doctrine which he is unable to discard.